Opera is the greatest art form. We all know that. It has everything. It has a play. It's got beautiful singing. It has direction of the stage and the orchestra. It has set design. It has costume design. It often even has dancing. And to be involved in that at the top level, you have to be a master storyteller. And we only have master storytellers here on Narrative Drive Time. Today, we are joined by one of the absolute best ever. Isabel Bayrakdarian. She is a soprano. She has been nominated for a Grammy twice. She has won 4 straight Junos, been nominated 6 times. She sang on the Lord of the Ring soundtrack. She has performed at all the great opera houses, La Scala in Milan, at the Met in New York City. She's won a ton of awards, the Queen Elizabeth II Golden Jubilee and Diamond Jubilee medals. And I'm going to tell you about one more, the Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions, which was a big deal to her at the time. Isabel, thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to start with that win. It's often called the Placido Domingo or Opera Really Award. Tell us what you were doing when you won that award.
So the Met competition was in 1997 and Opera was in 2000. So a lot
I'm mixing them up.
Yep. A lot happened between those 3 years. But in 1997, when I was a finalist for that competition. And I was a 4th-year biomedical engineering student at University of Toronto. And I mean, if I had a little bit, if anybody had a shred of self-doubt, that would have been crushing. But I was just so, honestly, from the very beginning, I never compared myself to anybody else. And that truly has been how I've kept my own voice, not singing voice, my own communicative voice. You know, you can be inspired by others, but I've never competed with or emulated anyone else. So I was in New York City, and when I won the competition, we had 10 of us. There were 10 winners. We had to do a winner's concert. I mean, they can't get any bigger than this, right? Mm-hmm. I clearly remember that year we were 9 women and 1 man. So I could remember all my fellow winners. They were excited about their gowns. They were excited about, they were doing their hairs, their nails. What was I doing? I was cooped up in the hotel room getting faxes from engineering about my assignments that were due. It was so surreal. It was so surreal. But at the same time, I thank God for that, because, you know, when you put you can easily sabotage yourself by all these thoughts that go in, you know, so because I was in a mental state as opposed to an emotional state, it was just music. I approached that concert as fun. I enjoyed it. Like, I literally said, I believed nobody could have sung my repertoire better than me. It's not that's not to say that whoever else is singing their repertoire isn't good. Has nothing to do with that. It's just this innate knowledge that whatever I'm gonna give you that day, it's my best. And it is very good. So I had this bold confidence, and I just was amazing. It was enjoyable. To this day, I look at that picture, and I love the courage of the girl I see in it, the complete innocence, and the beauty of just being. You know what I mean? Of just being, and just. Here I am. Doesn't matter about my pedigree. Doesn't matter that I'm a 4th-year engineering science student. My heart, my soul is communicating with you. My heart, my soul has something to say, regardless of the label that's been stuck on me as the engineer, right? So I truly, you know, that's very interesting, because right now that I'm in the other side, when I'm the one adjudicating a lot of singers, young generation, I think I have ears that are this way. I do not look at a resume. I hear, is this person speaking to me? Regardless of the label put on them, right? Is it touching my heart? That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Ultimately, that's all that matters.
Well, I mean, there's a lot in all of that. I mean, first of all, you win the competition. And as you said, certainly having something else to think about keeps you from getting inside your own gears and tripping yourself up. But after you won, you went back to school.
Oh, yes, because that was March and it was right at the finals. I had to pass. I had zero motivation after that. I must accept, March. So graduation was in May. I already had jobs to sing. I was offered small but pivotal roles in young artist programs. First, it was Glimmerglass Opera, the young artist program there. I was even offered a main stage role, tiny but amazing. I took a bow as a soloist, So that was 2 months after I graduated from engineering. And then right afterwards, the Canadian Opera Company offered me the young artist program. The whole music momentum started. So but I knew, like as in everything, you commit to something, you have to see it through. And it was one of the most difficult things for me, those 2.5 months, to finish my thesis, to pass my exams. It was barely towards the end, it was like barely, because I was like, yeah, I just want to sing. But I knew that I had to finish my degree. And I'm so happy I did it because in this fickle world, not necessarily just the artistic world, the world we live in, it's always good to have options. And I really don't think that I truly don't believe that we're born with just one talent. I think all of us are given many, many, many talents. And the more you develop your talents, the more backup you have and the more backbone you have, so that you're not in any situation where you're forced to do something that your heart says don't do, right? There's a certain sense of distance you can put, like, I'm not desperate. Nothing good comes out of desperation. No.
No. Fear is a terrible motivator. Well, it tells me a lot.
Unless there's a lion running behind you, yes. But exactly, I concur with you. That was great backbone to have. And going back, if I were to go back, I would do it all over again. I would do it the same thing. I wouldn't change anything, nothing in my past.
Well, there's never a downside to learning. Like, anything you learn stays with you and has value one way or another. When I went to school, I got a communications and English degree so I could learn to write and learn about the basics of communications. I also got a business degree afterwards to broaden myself. And I haven't started using that business degree until the last couple of years. But it works. I want to talk a little bit about your career. I want to show a couple things. Like, you have a ton of beautiful CDs. These are just from my collection because I'm a huge fan. This is one of my favorites. And we're going to hear a little bit of this later. You're also featured in a CBC documentary. So for anybody watching, there are a lot of different ways to enjoy your talents. Can you just show us the latest one that you've been working on?
Sure. This was released in March. It's The Other Cleopatra, Queen of Armenia. And it is, would you like me to briefly speak about it, Craig?
Please do. Please tell me about it.
It's truly a labor of love. And so I'm associate professor of voice at UC Santa Barbara. And part of my research project was digging up these operas that were written in the Baroque period. It turns out there are about 22 operas written by these Italian masters of the Baroque about an Armenian king called Tigran. And of course, I know about Tigran. I grew up in history lessons, Medzen Tigran. He was our greatest. He was almost like an emperor. We had a huge empire under him.
Because you have an Armenian background.
Yes. That should also, yes. But in the history books, nobody talked about his wife. His wife was Cleopatra, but not that Cleopatra, not Cleopatra of Egypt. So that's why it's called The Other Cleopatra. She was the daughter of Mithridate, who was the king of Pontus. And the alliance of the two countries, Armenia and Pontus, allowed, so basically it was the marriage between Cleopatra and Tigran that allowed Tigran to become the ruler of these two mighty nations. And these operas have been written, which I, as an Armenian, did not know about. And so imagine my curiosity just like opened up just to dig up these operas that were lost or fragments exist and nobody knows about. So I collected arias for Cleopatra by 3 composers, Hasse, Vivaldi, and Gluck, all written within 35 years of each other, beginning from 1716 to 1749. So, but the beauty of it is that even though there are 22 operas written, each composer has used a different libretto. Libretto is the story, right? It's the storyline of an opera.
It's the script.
These 3 composers all use the same script. So what's very interesting is you come to a section, let's say Act 1, Scene 4. All of a sudden you hear how Vivaldi was inspired to write music for that particular dramatic moment. And then you compare it with Gluck. How did Gluck approach it? And then you see the genius of each composer. Of course, I mean, if I had the space, I would have opened it up to more composers. So this came about in March. You could not have wished for a worse time for a release.
No kidding.
All my concerts were canceled. Of course, I was about to concertize all through 2020 and even part of 2021. It doesn't matter though, because I had to have her voice be heard. She was not she was unknown. She was our queen, and we didn't even know she was a great queen as Armenians. So I'm so happy to bring both identity and musical identity together in this project and give this role, this character, true historical character, a voice. So it was beautiful. I recorded it in Lithuania with the Kaunas City Symphony Orchestra. The conductor was Konstantin Orbelian, also of Armenian descent. So it just was magical, and I can't wait to concertize and take it on the road again. It's beautiful record.
I can guarantee you that is going to be under my Christmas tree. Either I'm giving it to Nancy for myself, or she'll give it to me for herself. I am a huge fan of yours, and we have known each other now. I just figured out we've known each other for 10 years now. And I had the great pleasure of meeting you when I was at High Fidelity HD TV, and we were showing operas on our Hi-Fi channel. And my job was to go out and find someone to introduce the operas. So I got a chance to meet a lot of my favorite Canadian opera stars. But what really made you stand out from these other really accomplished and wonderful people is when we sat down over fries on Bloor Street. You just told these wonderful stories. They just kept falling out onto the table with the fries, and were so engaging and so connected and listened so well. Like you were a natural storyteller, and a lot of that natural storytelling came from your ability to make a connection with this audience. Let's talk about that storytelling. And then we're going to hear you sing in a minute. I'm not going to make you sing now. I've got some recording, but just tell me a little bit about the performer's role in an opera. The music is written. That's part of the story. The libretto is there. The plot and script is written. What do you bring to it as a storyteller?
I think individuality, 100%. It's one word. 2 words, I will say, authenticity and individuality, right? Authenticity because, and they're both connected, because you can hear the same opera sung, the same role sung by different people. And each and every time it's going to leave a different emotional impact on you. Why? Because each person's soul is different. And yes, the composer was inspired by the text. So there's a couple of it's a chain reaction. So you have an inspiration of somebody to write a libretto. The composer has been inspired by that to write the music. And now you have to bring your own inspiration to interpret it. And the interpretation has to be when you actually put your own character in the shoes of the role. If it's a villain, it's a very exciting thing. Then you dig up things in your character that, ooh, would I do this? Would I do that? Or if it's a very docile character, you go, okay, I can act. Or
both of those would be acting for you.
I don't know. All of us have the yin and yang in us, But it's a wonderful way of You have to take it through the filter of the self. It can never exist separate from your own, right? So you have to bring the character and your character together, and whatever comes out goes to the audience with authenticity. And oh, absolutely, especially in recitatives, when it's spoken more, the cadence and the direction is always like, what do you want to stress? What does Isabel want to stress? More, what does the character stresses? And then it becomes human, and then it becomes real. I clearly remember my first opera that I sang, full-length opera, was Barber of Seville in Toronto. I jumped in as Rosina. And it was like I was a young artist, and all my family members, they were like, yay, they all came for the performance. And then afterwards, I clearly remember my brother-in-law, who doesn't really attend opera that much, or he was like, I can't believe it, that was Isabel on stage. He said, that wasn't Rosina, that was Isabel on stage. That was the biggest compliment to me. The biggest compliment, because he did not see a character. He saw a real person reacting as Rosina reacted, and said that it's the same. And to me, that was effortless communication, effortless. When you're not trying, you just are.
Yeah, Bruce Springsteen's often said, the last thing you want to be doing on stage is thinking. You want to...
Can I?
You absolutely.
I've tried this. You cannot just not think. You'd be in serious trouble, at least when you're using an instrument as finely tuned as the voice. You go in and out. As a singer, I'm going to tell you, you go in and out. You cannot lose yourself. Losing yourself is losing control over the muscles needed to make sure that you hear gold. Because if we don't hear, you know what I mean? It's just, we have to make sure we are in tune with our body. We cannot lose that connection. We go in and out, though.
Let's hear some of that gold. I'm going to bring in one performance, and I have to mute our mics, but we're going to just listen to a little bit of it. I can't play all of it, but let's just take a listen to this. Well, I could just listen to that all day. So beautiful. When you do two different things as a performer and storyteller. You do the operas and then you do recitals. Let's talk about the opera first. How do you prepare as a storyteller for your role in an opera?
Foremost, when I look at a role, number one, of course, I have to make sure that vocally it fits, because you can want to tell a story as much as possible. If you're fighting against a technical mismatch, then you cannot. You're constantly thinking about technique, right? So it needs to fit beautiful, like a glove. And when it does that, and this is the key, I think, more than anything, when it fits, then you can do magic. And magic is keeping it as spontaneous as possible. So, as I said before, you first of all bring your own reaction toward the role. So, if a character is saying this, even if you don't believe it, you have to come to a point where you actually believe it. You have to believe it. For that production, you have to believe that you would have done that choice, so that on stage you can be real. But there's another element. When you're on stage, you always have to realize, yes, you're acting, but there's a fourth wall. You have an audience. As much as possible, give your audience everything. Give them your joy. Let them see. Don't hide. So it's not about hear me show off. It's not that. It's, can you feel the same thing I'm feeling? That's what it is. Can you feel? Are you inspired by this? Hear me. I'm full of joy. I'm always full of joy when I sing, even if it's a sad thing. So I want to make sure that as a communicator, I communicate not with the mind. My goal isn't to communicate with you the mind of the audience, for them to say, ooh, that was impressive. I want to melt your heart. When you're hearing me, I want to touch your soul, because my soul can touch your soul. And that's when healing happens. You see, that's why do we leave certain performances transcended? Why? It's not because of the mind, because of our spirits are enlightened by seeing an inspired performance. So we see the light in another person. When that light comes to us, given freely, the soul accepts it, and it becomes, this is not about physical existence after all. There is some divine existence on this planet, it remembers who it is, and it's beautiful.
How do you know when you've made that connection?
First of all, it's futile to look for it. You have to be in that existence. Do not look for confirmation from others. What I know is, the minute I'm stressed on stage, and always happens to every singer, every person, I willingly tell to myself, enjoy, be happy. This could be the last time you're on stage. Enjoy. What would you do? Honestly, I've said this to myself. If this was the last time I'm going to be on this stage, what memories do I want to have of it? Because nobody has any guarantee about the future, not even from 1 hour from now. So if this was my last time, would I be stressed? Of course not. Of course not. Why would I? So why not live like that? So, and I catch myself so many times, sometimes even before making the first important walk on stage that takes, okay, here we go, kind of thing, just joy. And when I'm filled with joy, you'll see it, you'll feel it. That's all.
Well, I mean, that's good advice for everybody, especially right now. When everybody is stressed, we're recording this during the middle of COVID. Everybody's so stressed. It is so necessary to enjoy, as Warren Zevon said, enjoy every sandwich, right? Really get the most out of it. Now let's talk about the recitals, because I know that's something where you have a lot more control.
Yeah. So, operas, you are definitely, it's beautiful because it's a collective experience, right? There's nothing, I always say, we're like, opera singers are truly like gypsy lifestyle. We come together, we make a band, and we make a home somewhere for six weeks or 5 weeks, and then we're gone. And then when we meet each other again, like, hey, how's it going? And we catch up. And that has its advantages, of course, and disadvantages. So in the last couple of years, more and more, I've been doing, of course, recitals and concerts, or driven mostly by what is passionate for me. and not so much, do you know what I mean? You go through so many
Mhm.
stages in life. First, you have to prove yourself, then you have to follow the mold. And then comes the point where you give the blessing to the next generation and you kind of start doing your own project that bring fire and to your heart and to keep your mind curious. So this is where the projects I've done lately, recitals or even the recording projects, are things that are driven by my own passion. Whatever, whether it's unearthing rare repertoire, or if it's social justice, or even just making sure that new compositions are being commissioned for soprano and chamber music. That's very important for me, right? So new kind of breathing in freshness into existing repertoire. So what you just heard, the clip that you showed, was actually a sacred music that was a sacred hymn recorded in a 4th century monastery in Armenia called Kerart, Saint Kerart. So if you haven't noticed so far, I'm very spiritual.
Mhm.
I'm very, very spiritual. And that force has been like the tree trunk that has held me up, sustained me. When hurricanes swayed all my branches up there, this trunk and the roots have held me up. Faith has held me up. And the talk about, communication, storytelling. When I sing Armenian sacred music, it's the epitome of communication to me, because I am communing with my creator. How beautiful and how strong is that? When it's almost like your GPS gets aligned to a source of light, to a source of peace, and unimaginable. And I talk, and I through each of these hymns are an opportunity for me to speak with God, to communicate, commune with Him. And I've learned recently also to just be quiet and hear back what's coming back, not just do, but and just hear. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It's a skill I've developed more and more. But that has also helped me guide my future projects as well. Always stay in the heart, always stay what your purpose is in life. And the mind doesn't tell you what your purpose is in life. Your soul will tell you. Why did you come to this planet at this time? Why? And so recitals also have a way of keeping me, as I said, alive, curious. That's the key to me, curiosity. And not just same old, same old. I would die with the same old. Literally, it would be like an inner death for me with the same thing, same old thing. I constantly need to be creating, need to be and communicating. It can't just be but to myself. It has to be, and I have so many opportunities, right, to teach, and to, whether it's my children or it's my students at UCSB, I have always a chance to communicate and pass on what I've learned. And I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed for life's lessons, for the music lessons that I can pass on right now. It's a beautiful feeling, wonderful,
What have you learned about yourself from your life as a storyteller?
That we know who we are from the very beginning. Just don't try to change it. That just the sense of, especially these days, everybody's trying to become something they see is getting likes, or they see is being popular, and the need to change who you are for the excuse of, oh, I want to be better. Make sure you know who you are. Of course, we're all in the process of betterment. You always have to make yourself better. You always need to grow, but never ever forget that who you are is who you were when you were very young. So we don't really change so much. The circumstances may change. We don't change. And that has brought a beautiful sense of peace, and everybody's good the way they are, you know?
Yep. Well, Isabel, I have enjoyed our friendship over the years. I've just loved all of your performances. It's been such a pleasure knowing you. I know my wife feels the same. Thank you for being such an open performer. Thank you for being such a willing teacher. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. It's always such a genuine pleasure. I always leave our conversations very uplifted and fulfilled, and I'm very happy to know you.
Thank you so much, Greg. Pleasure is mine.
And thank you very much for being a guest on Narrative Drive Time. Are you a storyteller who wants to tell the story of how you tell stories? Yes? Then I want to hear from you. Drop me a line at craig@colbyvision.net and tell me a little bit about yourself, your career, and some of the particulars of your process. Colbyvision is a storytelling company working in the broadcasting and the business world. Send me an email if you need help with either. Thanks to Tim Vesely for the music, and Kevin Francisco for the graphics, and Dave White for the editing. And thanks to you for watching Narrative Drive Time.